Welcome viewers to this series of lectures on early Indian economy, and what we are discussing today as part of various stages of early Indian economy is stage 7 and 8, and in this set of two lectures we will try to cover the portion which chronologically happens to be say around the 6th century BC in Indian history, or you can say the middle of the first millennium BC. So it is towards the end of the later Vedic period, and the timeline that takes us from there, from the end of the later Vedic period to around the beginning of the what we understand as Mauryan Empire. So that happened say around 4th century BC, and it is these 200-300 years which typified a very phenomenal change in early Indian economy that we are trying to capture through these two lectures. It is the enormity of change, particularly in the realm of economy, that is very germane to whatever we discuss otherwise with reference to say religion, religiosity, coming of heterodox religions like Buddhism, Jainism, Ajivikas, Ajit Keshkambalin's views and so forth, and alongside that several other social changes and political changes as well. So limiting our discussion to the economic part of it, if we just again begin with what conventionally has been written about this period by different historians stage wise, then as we have been using the stage wise distinctions made by Professor R.S. Sharma, so let's begin with that, and then we will see as to what could be other ways of looking at this particular period. So in his scheme of things, he designated this period say from 6th century BCE to around the times when Mauryan Empire began, say 322 BCE. So he calls this period as iron based production in crafts and agriculture with reference to economy. So as you can see, there is a lot of emphasis on the criticality of iron technology and its usage to the extent that it is not only limited to warfare and other equipments, but also in the very process of production. And when we say production here, primarily it is agriculture. It is plowshare, iron plowshare that is being debated. Of course, alongside that, iron found its usage in several other arts and crafts as well. But central to R.S. Sharma's scheme of things is iron-based production in crafts and agriculture, and that is how he weaves several other arguments related to the phenomenal changes that is registered in 6th century BCE. So, beginning with iron, he goes on to talk about transplanted rice cultivation that happens or that becomes a possibility in the middle Gangetic plain. So, geography here also is very important. So, while the locale of what was happening in the Rigvedic period is primarily the Sapta Sindhu area, in the early Vedic period, that is, or say in the later Vedic period, it also includes the upper Gangetic plain, and from here on, from 6th century BCE onwards, it is the middle Gangetic plain that has come into prominence. So when we say middle Gangetic plain, what you should keep in mind in terms of the present location of sites could be from Prayag to Bhagalpur. So Allahabad / Prayag up to Bhagalpur in Bihar. So it is the eastern Uttar Pradesh and the central Bihar. That area is what we are talking about, and this is where where a lot of changes are registered with respect to whatever we will be talking about. So we have usage of iron, even in the process of production, alongside weaponry and several other artifacts. We have transplantation of rice coming up in a big way. So rice cultivation is one thing, but when we know about the technology of transplanting rice, its acreage increases to the extent of almost doubling itself. So if a farmer is sowing seeds and growing paddy, then whatever is the acreage, whatever is the produce, doubles when he resorts to this technique of transplanting rice. And so transplanting rice can happen only with respect to certain degree of rainfall and suitability of soil, which is alluvial soil, which of course was present in the Middle Gangetic Plain, quite unlike the Sapta Sindhu area and Upper Gangetic Plain, and also the average rainfall, which is just about adequate for this kind of technology to take roots, transplantation of rice, because it requires almost water submerged fields for transplantation to happen. So it requires, when the saplings grow, to pull it out from that place and sow it at a place different from that, and that leads to increase in the acreage of rice. Sugar cultivation, sugar cane cultivation also begins. And if you remember last time around when we were talking about the later Vedic times, in the western Uttar Pradesh, we talked about sugar cane, but most probably they were of natural or wild variety, not the domesticated variety of sugar, not the cultivated variety of sugar cane. And here, perhaps we are now in a situation where sugarcane cultivation is taken to in a very intensive way. Cotton cultivation is also happening. Towns in the middle of Gangetic Plains is yet another feature that typifies this period. So a lot of towns, if you, as a student, if you just look at the map of 6th century BC North India and compare it with the, say, Rigvedic map or later Vedic map, you will find a lot of dots on the political map of early Indian history for this period, and most of these dots are located in the middle Gangetic Plain, the area that we just spoke about. And that tells you about habitation sites, number of habitation sites, density of habitation sites, and also, I mean, if towns are growing up in such a big number, mushrooming almost in the gap of, say, 200, 300 years, around 600 BC, what does it tell us is that this area has acquired enough wherewithal, enough capacity, economic capacity to generate that much of surplus which could sustain the town population, because townsmen are typically defined as non-producing population. They themselves don't resort to agriculture. They are either in the service sector or manufacturing sector doing something other than agricultural activities, and so they have to be sustained through regular supply of food, grains and so forth. So it also presumes a huge hinterland around every town. So the mere existence of a town in early Indian archaeology presumes that a vast rural hinterland must have been catering to the requirements of the inhabitants of that town. And that tells you about the economy, that tells you about the state of economy around that time. Diversification of crafts and their organization to guilds. Now, guilds in the literary sources pertaining to this period is a new entrant. Shrenis, that's how they are referred to in the contemporary texts, and there seems to be a diversification of crafts and artistic activities around this time, and the organizational aspect of these artisanal activities or craft activities also are understood with reference to emergence of guilds or shrenis. Now, they are hereditary, they are premised on hereditary principles, all right. They have some kind of a command and control from control within the group, but they also bargain to the advantage of the guild members or the adherents vis-a-vis the ruler or several other agencies that can impact their business. So it could be like the ancient counterparts of the say industry organizations. You must have heard of FICCI, CII, and they are all India business chambers and so forth. So what do they do is to have members, and they bargain with the government, with several other agencies to the advantage of its membership. They tend to safeguard their interests. Although, how do they go about infusing competition within themselves? Well, at this stage, shrenis or guilds are not fostering competition. They rather are trying to maintain a price which does not foster competition. But it is the collective goodwill, it is the collective well-being that's in their mind, and even in several other matters of jurisprudence and so forth, it is expected of the kings to take care of the guild's norms and their safety and so forth, alongside say caste norms or regions norms and so forth. So they are all alluded to in the contemporary texts. Also, in 6th century BC, North India, we get to see very brisk inland and foreign trade, and this is evidenced by profusion of punch-marked coins. Now, this punch-marked coins is a metallic coin of different shapes and sizes. Mostly they are of some geometrical shape or size. They invariably are made of silver, and cut into various sizes. So a silver strip is made, and they are cut as per its weight, and it is the sheer intrinsic value of that coin or that object which serves as a coin carrying a value. So it's not an extrinsic coin, it's an intrinsic coin. The value of the coin is embedded in the material of the coin itself, and they were not minted the way subsequently coins came to be minted, usually of round size, bearing some legend or bearing some portrait or something inscribed over it. So punch-marked coins have nothing of that sort. It's a strip, it's a copper strip cut into various sizes as per weight to serve as a coin of particular value, which is the value of the silver carried by it, and over that something is stamped, usually some figure, say rising sun or some mountain or a tree. So something pertaining to those guilds who are issuing it. And remember, most probably it is not the royal authority which is issuing these coins. Most probably it is the guilds, it is these trade bodies or artisanal bodies that are issuing these coins, and that is facilitating this much of exchange of articles and so forth, that we will see the degree of that. Archaeologically, if you see, this period is marked particularly in the Middle Gangetic Plain by the emergence of a new deluxe ware that comes into being, and that is ubiquitously present in archaeological profile of the period. That is called northern black polished ware. as the name itself suggests, it is polished. So there is a lot of glaze, quite unlike the previous painted greyware potteries that typified later Vedic period and so forth. Now, in addition to that, in addition to northern black polished ware, there are several sites where you find both northern black polished ware and painted greyware potteries. And so it's a gradual transition. There is no hiatus as such. It's not as if different set of people are using different potteries. It's the same set of people over a period of time, and maybe some of the well-off sections of society are now using northern black polished ware because it appears to be a deluxe pottery. It has a very glossy finish, quite unlike painted greyware, which has a very ordinary kind of finish. Then mostly northern black polished potteries are found in association with iron artifacts, and also punch marked coins. So that tells you the context in which historians have analyzed the findings of northern black polished ware. So it is the Middle Gangetic Plain which appears to be the epicenter, or you can say the focus area or the nuclear area from where this northern black polished ware emerges, and then it radiates to other areas, because even outside the Middle Gangetic Plain, say in the upper Gangetic Plain or even in the Malwa area, you find a lot of northern black polished ware potteries strewn all over, and all that tells us that the affluence, the material affluence of Middle Gangetic Plain is radiating to other areas as well. So if you see in a pan-Indian perspective, the straggling Chalcolithic settlements usually found at river confluences or hilly and red soil areas, that's where generally the Chalcolithic settlements are found in the post-Harappan period. So that phase is now getting succeeded by the iron-using Middle Gangetic settlements, and it is the Middle Gangetic Plain which is using iron, painted greyware, and over and above the painted greyware, it is the black polished ware, etc., that assumes focus now. So as you can see, I have listed some of the sites from where painted greyware as well as northern black polished ware have been found. That suggests a continuum of settlement, and there is no break between the two. So later Vedic makes a transition to the 6th century BC culture, and this affluence in the Middle Gangetic Plain is not disjointed development. So it is gradual transformative change that we are talking of. So Atranji Kher, Ahichhatra, Ropar, Ujjain, Besnagar, these are some of the places. They are all outside the Middle Gangetic Plain, and yet you have painted greyware, northern black polished ware continuum that can be seen at these sites. So the prosperity that was registered in the Middle Gangetic Plain radiates to these areas too. Now, if we look at the early Pali texts outside archaeology, if we look at the literary aspect of sources, there also it is corroborated. This change, which is otherwise registered in archaeological profile of Middle Gangetic Plain, is corroborated, is substantiated by early Pali texts who talk of Middle Gangetic area as their descriptive area of focus in the context of material prosperity. Now, archaeologically, we otherwise know that in Deccan and South India, megalithic cultures are also quite contemporary. So, during the same period, If you look at the archaeological profile of the Deccan and South India, it is the megalithic cultures that we find around this time, and all of us know that megalithic cultures or megalithic communities are also using iron, and they also know about agriculture. But there are several other dots of historical reconstruction that don't join as coherently to reveal a culture or to reveal a civilizational fabric to the extent it does in the Middle Gangetic Plain in the literary sources. So that's the scenario in the pan-India perspective. And this spurt in agriculture in the Middle Gangetic zone obviously would have necessitated forest clearance by iron implements. And all of us know that conventionally forests were cleared, and this I had spoken about in great length in our previous interaction regarding the later Vedic period, that the norm of clearing forests and making it fit for cultivation was to burn it. And there are several rituals and ritus devoted to this practice in different sources. Now, in the Middle Gangetic Plain, it appears that alongside the conventional setting the forest on fire to make it habitable, to make it fit for cultivation, alongside this, perhaps there is also a prolific usage of iron technology because of the very nature of vegetation here. Quite unlike the soft loamy soil of the upper Gangetic Plain, Middle Gangetic Plain soils are hard. If you look at the soil of Patna, or Pataliputra, the present day Patna, it is Keval mitti, and they are quite hard. And the roots of plants grown here are going vertically down deep into the soil. So to uproot it, merely setting it on fire perhaps would not have been possible, would not have been enough, and therefore it must have necessitated use of iron implements, hoe and spade and so forth, to uproot it from within the ground and so forth, and then make it fit for cultivation. Buddhist texts also mentioned iron plowshare, but archaeologically they are not to be found in good numbers. So it's rare to have found iron plowshare in the Middle Gangetic Plains as it is spoken of in the literary sources. So Kaushambi, Vaishali, barring these prominent sites, it's difficult to find iron plowshare in the Middle Gangetic Plain. Historians have come out with climatic justification for this absence of iron plowshare from Middle Gangetic Plain, despite this ubiquitous reference to it in the literary sources. So this is something that we shall be talking about in next part of this lecture, which is part 8 of the stages of early Indian economy. Thank you.